Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we take a look at the Lianli Lancool 207. This is ATX redesigned or reimagined, so they've made some slight tweaks to the ATX layout, giving you a little bit more opportunity to keep your graphics card and your CPU cool, and some unusual wiring options for your power supply. So let's take a look at this case and see what it's all about. This case was provided by Colin Hilton. Thank you very much, Colin Hilton, much appreciated. And we will be doing a giveaway on this specific case in the near future, so stay tuned for that. So first of all, let's take a look at the dimensions. So this is actually supposedly micro ATX sized, but ATX form factor. The measurements coming in at 455.6 millimeters from front to back. We're looking at 465 millimeters from top to bottom and 219 millimeters wide. It also comes included with two addressable RGB fans, 140mm. These spin at somewhere between 500 and 2000 RPM. But not only that, you also get an additional two 120mm fans, which are at the bottom of the case, which are designed to blow air straight at your graphics card. Those are 120mm fans, and they spin, again, roughly the same, sort of 450 to 1900 RPM. At the time of recording, this case is available on the market for somewhere in the region of about 75 UK pounds. I'll put some links in the video description so you can check out local pricing to you. And obviously, depending when you're watching this, prices may differ drastically. The case also comes in an option of two colours, so there is a black version and also the white version that we've got here, so there should be something for everybody. So let's start off with a tour of the case and see what it's all about. So start off at the front panel. So as you can see, we've got this really nice tight mesh front panel. This is also designed as filtration, but if you do want additional filtration, there is actually an optional extra, which is something which I think in early reviews was missing, but they've now added this in. So there is an additional mesh filter, which you can purchase as a separate item, which goes on the inside of the case to reduce some of that dust ingress. Now, removing the front panel is pretty straightforward. So there's a little indentation here. So you just grab this and pull it off. There's magnets at the top, and also there's little ports at the bottom. So that just locks in the bottom and pushes into place. Something I have noticed, the tolerances are actually very, very tight. So sometimes the magnet doesn't always push it all the way in. So you might need to give it a little extra hand just to get it fully seated. And the first time you take it out, it's actually quite difficult to do. But this is nice. This is all fully metal, easy to clean. And behind there, we can see the fans which are included. Now these are 140mm fans. You can replace them if you want to, but for the case, I would say really, you're probably best off leaving them in there. They're pretty decent fans. They look really nice. They're addressable RGB. And the mountings behind there will only provide mountings for 140mm fans. Also, depending on the fans that you potentially might go for, actually you might have challenging issues with wiring, depending when the wires come out on your fans. Something like ATX P14s basically won't fit in there because you won't be able to squeeze the wiring in there. So I would suggest, if you don't like the look of this case and you don't like the idea of these fans, then probably look elsewhere, because this is kind of one of the main selling features of it. The fans themselves do a fantastic job and blow an absolute ton of air. At the bottom, there's a very discreet Lianli logo, and that's pretty much it for the front. Next, we'll take a look at the side panel. So we've got a full glass side panel, nice and thick, 4mm thick, and on the white version, it's completely clear. If you go for the black version, there's a very slight smoke tint. Removing the panel, pretty straightforward. Grab on the side and just pull it outward, and it actually rests on the lower panel. There's also some foam on there as well to stop vibrations. Then at the bottom, we've got this other removable panel. I would have liked for this panel to be removable on its own, because sometimes you might want to do something with your power supply, which is in the basement, or maybe do some maintenance to the fans or drives in this bottom section. But unfortunately, you do have to remove the glass in order for this panel to be removed. Also, there are two screws on the back, which are captive thumb screws. So you can just undo those, and then the panel slides backwards and then outwards. So there's two little latches at the bottom, which go into the plastic feet here, and then you push it in to lock it in. Again, this is quite a tight mesh on here and is doubling up as filtration as well, and also being airflow for the fans which are mounted in the bottom section. So we'll start from the bottom and work our way up, because the bottom section is actually quite interesting and does things a little bit differently. So most people will be expecting to see your power supply mounted in this rear section here, with the power supply cord facing outward and your wires trailing underneath. In this particular instance, the actual power supply is mounted in this section here, and there is a pass-through cable which then plugs into your power supply, so something like an extension. There are some limitations on power supplies on this because of the depth of the case itself. They are suggesting a power supply of a depth of no more than 160 millimeters. So this whole bottom section is kind of redesigned. So the bottom section here is for drive storage. So there are 2 removable sleds, which we'll take a closer look at when we look at the back. And then above that, we've got these 2 120mm fans, which are pre-installed. 11 blades on there, I believe it is. And again, spin speeds of around about 450 to 1900 RPM. They are daisy chained. So there's 1 PWM connector, which comes out the back, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. So yeah, nice and easy to do. And of course, being where they are, it's going to pull in fresh air from underneath at the back, from the sides, and also from the rear. So that's going to pull in clean, fresh air and push it into the path of your graphics card. Now there is actually an additional add-on for this case. So if you want to vertically mount a GPU, there is a vertical GPU add-on kit, which is available. Although I'd say realistically for the design of this, it probably does suit the traditional horizontal mounting anyway. Moving along to the power supply basement. So again, this is slightly raised up and there's some ventilation on the top. So if you want to have your power supply with the fan up or fan down, it's absolutely fine. There's ventilation both sides. And also depending where your power supply actual plug is, because we have this kind of right angled connector, slimline connector, depending where the actual plug is on your power supply, you might find it's better off over here, or possibly upside down there or there. If you've got a power supply which is in a slightly unusual place for the actual input, then again, you might struggle with this potentially, so do bear that in mind before you make a purchase. So moving up from that, we've got our 2 fans, so 140mm fans. All the cable management and wiring is done straight from the factory, so it's ready to go. And all you need to power both fans is a single 3-pin 5V addressable RGB connection and a single 4-pin PWM. So both fans will react exactly the same, which is excellent, and also saves on some wiring. Just across from the fans, there's a removable and adjustable GPU brace. So you can move that depending on the size of your graphics card. Graphics cards in here up to 375mm in length. So absolutely huge, honking great graphics cards with no problems at all. And of course, those extra cooling fans on the bottom are going to keep even the biggest and hottest of cards cool under pretty much any circumstance. So that is excellent. Moving up from there, we've got a rubber pass-through grommet. So depending on how you wire up your system or your ATX motherboard, you may potentially want to take the cables through these side channels, which have been enlarged slightly for this particular case. I think the original version had a slightly different design here, so this has actually been improved and also widened. But you can also put your power connection through there. If you've got maybe something like the Lianli strimmer cables, you might want to put those through just to give it a little bit more of an arch to let that RGB lighting shine through. So nice big cable channels on the side there. For some people, that might be problematic depending on your motherboard and how your connections go in. Lianli have also supplied, or have the option to supply, an additional USB 3.0 adapter bracket. So if you've got a motherboard where the USB 3 is kind of down here somewhere on a right angle and you can't get your connector through because of the limitations of the case, they can actually supply you an additional cable, which I believe is free of charge for all customers. So moving back this way, so we've got big cutouts here at the bottom. So for wiring up things like your HD audio, USB plugs, all that kind of stuff, anything which is coming up from the bottom there, that's absolutely great. They've also included as well a big pass-through on the front of the fan as well. So traditionally, if you've got your graphics card installed, the power plug on the graphics card is going to be somewhere in this kind of region, so almost directly in line with this cutout. So you can run your cable from the power supply up through there, straight into your graphics card, which is absolutely fine. When it comes to motherboard sizing, so this will support ITX, micro ATX, and ATX. It will not support extended ATX due to the fact that the actual motherboard section is slightly recessed to allow you a little bit more room in there for also being a slightly smaller chassis. And with that, you do also get the benefit of having the option to install larger CPU coolers. And they do state this will support up to 180mm CPU coolers, which is absolutely huge. Moving further towards the back, so we've got the removable PCI Express slots, which I'm very happy to say are all individually removable and are also on really nice thumb screws with even little rubber dampers on there to stop any vibrations. The only thing I would say, as this is very common with pretty much all Lianli cases, is the fact that they have this kind of resonance, and quite often you'll find that these back plates do you get that kind of weird noise coming through because they do want to move around a little bit, so potentially you might want to just bend them very slightly so that they don't want to move around, but other than that, they're absolutely fine. And of course, being fully removable means you can take them out if they're becoming increasingly annoying. Above that, we've got space for a 120mm fan, should you want to add an additional one in there, which realistically, with the setup as it is, with the amount of pressure you've got internally, then I think this is probably just best left as it is to let the heat soak out through. So yeah, that's absolutely great. You've also got a big cutout there. So if you're putting a custom CPU water cooler on, lots of access depending where your CPU socket is mounted. And also at the top as well, you've got 3 big cutouts there for passing cables through. So if you're putting maybe an AIO in the top or just trying to route through your EPS cables, lots of nice and easy access. Also, because the fact that the motherboard tray itself has been dropped down a few millimeters, it does allow you a little bit more wiggle room at the top there when you are dealing with those connectors, even if you have got a slightly larger radiator. And speaking of radiators, this will support a 360mm AIO at the top, or of course smaller versions, so 240s or even a 280. Alternatively, obviously if you want to, you can just put 3 fans in there, so 3 120s are absolutely fine, or 2 140s. Next we'll take a look at the back of the case. So as you can see, lots and lots of mesh here. Basically the entire rear section is entirely mesh. So again, potentially depending how you've got your system set up, if you have got some negative pressure in some way, then this isn't filtered at all, so it could potentially pull in dust. Ideally, obviously with the standard configuration, it's designed as a positive pressure, so this will allow the system to breathe very, very easily. So at the bottom, this is where your power supply would normally be. So again, this is all mesh, and also will be used as intake for the fans which are at the bottom. So again, this is unfiltered, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I guess you're still going to be getting some decent airflow, so you have to take it as it is. Also got the pass-through, the electrical connector there, PCI Express blanking plates, as we said before, IO shield section, and to remove the top part, that's pretty easy to do, so you just lift this up, and the top section pulls out. Again, this is all metal and a tight mesh, so acting as filtration. The metal lugs, actually in the case itself, these go into little plastic retainers, and you do get some spares included just in case years time or whatever, long time down the road, if they get a little bit brittle and accidentally break, then you do get spares included. Talking of spares included in the box, obviously you get your installation manual going through how to assemble the case and how to take it all apart and all that kind of stuff. And as always with Lianli, you get a nice little box there with all of your accessories, your grommets, some cable ties, cable management. You get these plastic clips as I mentioned, and also a bunch of silver screws to match in nicely with the build. Next, let's take a look at the back. So the back is a little bit unusual in the fact that it's got some ventilation down the bottom here. So this comes off in the same way, so it's all toolless. Just pop that side panel off. Again, as per usual, it kind of rests on these little bits here. You've got this filter in here, which isn't removable, which is unfortunate. I would have liked to have seen that to be removable. If you want to remove it, you have to kind of bend out these tags, which is, yeah, not ideal, but this should be pretty easy to clean. Just remove the panel, give it a vacuum, and you're good to go. So taking a closer look at what we've got going on here. So again, you can see the pass-throughs at the top there for EPS or cabling for fans, etc. We've got some additional sections here as well for kind of hooking in your EPS cables. Weirdly, the hooks are kind of going down. Those would have been better really turned 180 degrees, so the cable can actually rest in that channel rather than kind of falling down from it, but a couple of cable ties in there, you'll be absolutely fine. Also, you've got some really nice cable management options down the side here. Most of it is actually pre-routed out of the factory. So all of your front panel IO and the wiring for the fans is all channeled down this main channel. Then you've got these triple level Velcro strips, which you can cable manage. So you can put cables behind there, and these are double Velcro. So you can Velcro various different things in there. And if you decide to do a little bit of rewiring, you don't want to undo the whole lot, you can just peel back one little bit of Velcro. Very easy to do. And again, thumb screw here, so this is for the adjustable GPU brackets. You can move it between 3 positions, so for very long cards, medium-sized cards, and smaller cards. And also you've got a height adjustment there, which is as you'd expect. Pass through there for your main power cable, or you can take it through these side sections, however you want to do it. Moving down towards the bottom, so you've got ventilation. Power supply is going to be in here. You're probably seeing for some B-roll where I had a power supply in here a little bit earlier. So if you've got a modular power supply, it's going to be really easy. If you ever need to add any equipment, you can quickly gain access to it, plug in a new cable, and you're good to go. Also at the bottom here, there's 2 removable drive trays. So you can put in 2 drives, 2 2.5s or 2 3.5 inch drives. And those are actually going to be in a really good position for, in terms of keeping them cool. If you've got a mechanical 3.5 inch drive, they do tend to get a little bit warm after a while. So being the fact that air is going to be pulled in from this back section, from the side section in here, and also from the front, so you can have lots of fresh air coming into this section. Again, potentially depending on how dusty your environment is, this, because of being unfiltered, might get things a little bit dusty, but it isn't too much of a concern. So I think that's pretty much it for the layout. Let's take a look at the cabling. Like I said earlier, all you need for the front fans is a single 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB and also a 4-pin PWM, so connect that to your motherboard, and those are all up and running. You've also then got a HD audio cable, nice and long, to route all the way across the bottom for some nice clean cable management. You've also got a front panel connector. This one actually does amuse me slightly. So Lianli have gone to use the full size front panel connector, but it's only actually got one thing going into it, which is the power switch. This case doesn't have a hard drive LED, and it doesn't have a power LED, and it doesn't have a reset switch. So you've just got your single solitary power button switch on this massive block connector, which is kind of a little bit unnecessary, but I guess it does simplify wiring because it can physically only go onto the connector in one way. Also, there is a USB Type-C front panel connector, which is nice, and also you've got your USB 3.0. Again, this has got two cables coming off it, so that signifies 2 ports. Moving further towards the back, so this is our single PWM cable. So this is going to be for the dual fans, which are on the other side. Like I said, all of the cabling is kind of pre-managed for you and is all done ready to go. So just plug that in, and then you can put that into one of your motherboard headers, and then you control the fans at the bottom to see how much air your GPU actually needs. So overall, quite a nice design here. I think they've done everything pretty much bang on, really. There's not really much you can complain about. Those clips at the bottom, I think, would really be better suited upside down, but that is not a big deal. The only other consideration is if you have a power supply with a short EPS cable, so that's the one that goes to your CPU, they do recommend that you have a power supply with at least 600 millimeters or 60 centimeter cables, in which case then you can run it up in the traditional layout across here and then into your EPS. If you've got a slightly shorter cable, they do offer alternative cable routing options. So rather than going up through here, just take it across and the kind of path of least resistance. There isn't a lot of room behind the motherboard tray whilst the actual back panel is in place. If you've got flat cables on your power supply, it's going to be absolutely fine. You won't have any worries there. But if you've got some of the Corsair ones where they're braided, then they're quite chunky. So you may have to obviously maybe even get a cable extension to wire in your EPS. But as long as they're 600 millimeters in length, you should be absolutely fine. Next, let's move around to the bottom section. So not a great deal going on here. You've got the plastic feet with foam on there, so to remove vibrations. And you can see where this has kind of been taken from a previous design. So there's kind of slots going along there. So there must be a case of a similar kind of layout, which has a full-length filter. This one only has the filter here because at the bottom is where your hard drives are going to be. So kind of pointless having ventilation there if it's going to be blocked off. This section here, this panel, is removable and replaceable, so that is where your power supply is going to be pulling in its cool air. The only thing, again, depending on how you've got your desk set up or what you actually put on, if you put this on carpet, your power supply is going to fry. Basically, it's not going to get any air at all because these feet are very slimline. They're kind of about, I don't know, 10 mil. They're very, very shallow feet. So do bear that in mind when you've got your PC on something. There isn't a lot of air coming in underneath, so just do bear that in mind. Potentially you might want to put your power supply fan up just to make sure that it's getting plenty of fresh air from those two fans blowing in the front. Next, we'll take a look at the top section. So we've looked at the filter before, that was on the top, so yeah, that's no problem, just pops off. Toolish design. So you've got options here for 360mm radiator, 280mm radiator 240s, or 3 120mm fans or 2 140s. And it's nice to see that this is all really nice and open, so there's no extra metal really blocking things. There might be a little bit of an overlap here for 140mm fans if you're putting those in with these little tags here, but it's not going to be dramatic at all. Should be absolutely fine. Looking at the front panel, so like I said, we've got a USB Type-C. Next up, there's a combo headset jack, so no separate mic or headphones, so yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate. I would have preferred to have seen them separate, but more and more common these days, we are seeing headphones being manufactured with just a single plug on there, so not the end of the world, but potentially you might want an adapter just to split it between mic and headset. Single back power button in the middle, and we've got two USB 3.0 ports there. They're color-coded white to match in with the rest of the case, but they are USB 3.0. So I think that is pretty much it for a overview and first look at the Lianli Li Lancool 207. I actually really like this case. When it was first announced, I think it was at CES many moons ago. I looked at it and I thought, yeah, this is great. This is a case that I would really like for myself. And I think it still is. The only unfortunate thing is this case was actually designated for a viewer giveaway, so I won't be able to keep hold of this one, although potentially we might do a quick build on it in one of our live streams before we do a giveaway on it. If you want to see how that goes, obviously stay subscribed to the channel and click on the chime notification. That way you'll be notified of future video releases. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap this one up. Thanks again to Colin Hilton for sending this over for review and also providing it for a giveaway. Much appreciated. If you want to know more about the giveaway, we'll put details in the video description and also it'll be in future live streams as well. But I think that's going to pretty much wrap this one up. I think it's a great case and hopefully whoever wins it will think the same too. So that wraps it up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.